Hi everyone. Originally I wanted to make a very brief short video more on the philosophy of learning something like Opusmodus, which is because I quite often get requests or questions about how to make a full piece in Opusmodus, and this is often from people that just installed it or they're messing around with the demo and they have sort of an idea in their head and they want to make that. I always really advise against this because, first of all, it's like if you've never cooked an egg before, you're probably not gonna prepare a 7-course meal. It's just wise to start at the beginning. It can be like to organize all your material without knowing things about the basic length functions and the basic pitch functions, and how to work with bars in the context of lists. This can be very challenging. So I would always suggest to start with one function and learn those first. And this is why we create this beginning series, is that we look at all the elements separately. So we look at lengths, we look at pitches, and then we look at dynamics a little bit, and then we're going to combine these. But it's very normal to spend weeks or even months in just exploring and doing small stuff, coming up with maybe 8 bars first, 16 bars, etc., before you're going to make your next symphony. So that's one thing I wanted to advise. Always play around with the examples, and if you take a certain function, really look at the input and output of it. So I recently found this rather complex function, gen length Cartesian, which is a pretty impressive list of arguments here that are mandatory before it goes into the keyword arguments. So when you have something like this, you can start making it, like I often put it at the bottom or just in a new file. You can write out the arguments if you want, and then you just see what it does, and you start to change things, and then you see what it does. And then you realize, like, oh wait, so if I do 2 there, I'm just gonna have 2 values in my list. What if I do 5 there? Yeah, wow, 5 values. You're really gonna experiment with all of the different options that it can give you, and then you get sort of an intuition about a function like that. This is an advanced example, but I would start doing that with the basic pitch things and the basic, definitely the make OMN and some other functions. So that is one thing. And another thing that is very useful is, and this might sound a little bit weird, but don't start with a plan. Like when you start with a plan, then if you know already your melody and your harmony and where you want to be, then you can just use a notation editor and just write it down, basically. But this is the big difference between notation software and composition software. It's 2 different worlds. Sure, in Opusmodus we could use it in such a way, but you would miss 99% of what it's about, which is exploring and coming up with new ideas and experimenting. So that is what I wanted to mention, which sounds very preachy, I know. That's why I thought I don't get away with this if I also not show you an example. So I came up with this little score thing. It's heavily based on an idea that I got, that I learned from Stéphane. He's on the forum, and I will post his website in the description as well of this video. But basically the idea is to create one melody, basically, in this case 8 bars, and then to randomly create numbers between 1 and 8, which we then with the vector map function map on the randomly created OMN. But I will start from the top. This will make it a little bit easier. So first we have numbers here. I found randomly this function Colette's sequence. I had no idea what it was about, but it seemed to be quite simple. You start with a number, and then there are 3 mathematical rules applied to it, and eventually it will always go to 1. So I just started with a random high number, and then I get a number list that starts very high, it jumps around a little bit, and then eventually ends at 1. So if you then use an integer to pitch, you get incredibly high notes that eventually go to 1, but we'll take care of the octaves later. So then we have an assemble seq where I already transposed these pitches down -12. This is really not necessary because later I'm using an ambitus. In fact, let me just take this out because it doesn't make sense. So randomly we choose 8 notes here from this list. So now you always end up with a random set of different ones. And then here we are using this gen length Cartesian function, which I will not get into at all, but it comes up with very unique, cool rhythms. So we have this, then we have a vector to velocity. We've seen this many times before. We randomly create some points here. You can see some random floating points, and then we map that to velocity values, so in between 0.17 and 0.45. So we're mostly in the pianissimo range there. Now then, this is this idea here. So first we set the size. This will be the number of bars of our piece. And then we're gonna create a random list of 24 values with a different bar number, which with vector map, we map to our pattern. So that every time you, or actually not every time, but every time you evaluate the whole score. So if I set this differently again here, and then here I evaluate again, it will choose a different set of those bars that were generated here. So we do this for all of them, and this is to get variation out of one OMN section. We can get many different rhythmic variations there. So we create 4 voices this way, and these 4 voices are then going through an ambitus, which is a filter. We talked about this as well, which will just force it to be in a certain range. So we have that, and then we have the tonality series and the tonality map. Now, tonality series, once you have learned the basics of Opusmodus, and you know what length does, you know what the make OMN is about, you know how to work with pitches a little bit, and you want to make harmonic music, then I would say check out tonality series and tonality map first. They are very useful. So tonality series, it creates a, as it says, a series of tonalities. In this case, we have the root being D3, a harmonic minor, and we have the root at A and a major key. So what I'm doing here is with the harmonic rhythm, I'm saying, all right, I want first 7 bars and then 1 bar, and I map that on the tonality map. So what that means is that now for 7 bars we get the harmonic minor, and then for 1 bar we get a major with the A as the root. So that last one was the major bar. So we do this for all of the voices, and then for my bass voice, I wanted to have a little bit longer notes. So what I'm doing is I'm increasing the density, and then I'm filter tying the notes together. So filter tie is similar to length legato, and well, as it says, if the pitch is the same, then it will tie them together, basically. So that is the main thing of the piece. That is what the piece is about. And then to show you one more function that we haven't talked about yet, but that might be very useful as well when you're starting out, is do timeline, which is, because it's basically like what a sequencer does. We have here a function at the end, in this case gen pause, and what that means is that if we have an x here, this function will carry out its function. So what that means is that in this case, for the first 4 bars of the piece, because we set time to 1 bar, and we're only gonna hear voice 1, and then at bar 5 we get voice 2 as well, and then at bar 9 we get the first 3 voices, etc. So with this you can basically pause sections that you don't want to hear at this moment, so you can start to organize stuff. It's nicely explained in the manual. It says, when orchestrating, it's often easier to fill the instrumental parts with musical contents and then gradually erase sections. So that is what we can do with the gem pause. But the cool thing is we can use any function basically here. So You could also use pitch rotate or pitch transpose, and you can use multiple timelines in a row. And yeah, you can experiment with that as well, because it's kind of visually straightforward. So in here we have, we set the index to V, which means that from now on we have V1, V2, V3, and V4. We can see this if we evaluate the function. That's what it returns. So this is what we finally use in our piece. So in my case, I'm using Reaper, so I'm sending it to a MIDI port, and yeah, let's listen to the piece. It's, to be honest, it's not. I want to do a lot more on the piece, but I didn't want to make this too complicated for you. So I'm showing you how to set up a very healthy starting point. Personally, I'm probably going to tweak the score some more. I'm going to use some dictums on this and continue the work. But yeah, I just wanted to show you this. I hope it was useful. You can always ask questions on the forum, and yes, I will see you in another video.